You're listening to another exciting episode of Video Ditch, joined as always by me, Sam, and Nick. And today we have a very special guest, and we're also, well, Nick's in costume. I'm just dressed up for this brand new era.
He's Chainsaw Man or something.
I'm Alan Wake.
Whatever.
Just have to look confused. But yeah, today we're joined by a very special guest. Nick, would you like to give them the intro treatment?
Absolutely. For many, many a year, people have had a certain fondness for the idea of the auteur, the director whose personality and charisma and ability transcends the medium, and they, in a way, embody the very things that they create. People like David Lynch, that guy who made Phantom of the Paradise, and other great directors I'm sure you can think of off the top of your head, have gone for years and years and years, and we've thought, when is gaming going to get its time? When will we get our auteur? Now, there's a little guy named Kojima you may have heard of, and this isn't him. This is someone who's making something much bigger, much badder, and much more bombastic. We have Tony Grayson, a man you may recognize for creating the iconic game Dynamite Donkey, and also a much smaller but still impactful indie darling known as Antonblast. And frankly, if you're listening to this and you haven't heard of Antonblast, I have no idea how you got here.
Yes, Tony. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate the fact that you went all in on the auteur theory angle, because I do believe very strongly in disproving theories, live, and doing that in person. So thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to destroy any illusion anyone might have had of me up to this point.
See, look at that. He's embodying Anton, destroying even concepts. Incredible.
Absolutely. We are all about destroying things over here, and that includes reputations.
Oh, beautiful. Well, right off the bat, you want to give the viewers and listeners a little introduction of your own? Tell them who you are and what you do.
Sure. I mean, for as long as I've been doing this, I've never really had anything that was kind of in the pocket. I think that I've just always kind of been bad at self-promotion somehow. And that's exactly, that's the best place for us to start. So, hi, I'm Tony. You're watching me right now. And I am a game developer. I run the studio currently known as Summitsphere. I've been making games for far longer than I would like to admit. Some of them you may have heard of. Most of them you probably have not. Last year, I decided to start making some good ones. And so that first good game that I made was Antonblast, and people seem to like it enough. It's out on Steam and Switch. I've generally regarded it as the other Wario-style indie game floating around these days. And people seem to like it enough. It is something that, with the benefit of hindsight, I have come to regard as something of a cult classic. And up to this point, I've made little freak games for little freaks like me and others who are floating throughout the world. I'm sure there's much more I could dive into, or maybe not, but I think that is enough for the moment.
Fantastic, yeah. Don't sell yourself short. Anton Ball DX is quite good too.
See, I like that game a lot. I really do. I think that it doesn't get enough credit, actually. That's the real unsung hero of Anton.
It's true. You know what people have to do? They have to have friends that come over and they can hit each other with the balls in the game. And then when they lose, you hit them with the balls in real life. That makes it a lot more fun.
Exactly. It does get pretty freaky, when you're playing Anton Ball Deluxe with your friends.
Mm-hmm. It does. It's worth it.
Some Anton Ball play. Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah. Well, Nick, how have you been?
Man, I know I look red as hell. I promise I have not been drinking. It's just the lighting is abysmal in here. Never been better overall outside of that.
Beautiful.
It's gonna be a great one today.
You had to get in line with the Anton theming, right?
I know. I look like a fusion of the two guys.
It's kind of like the in-between of like an Animorph.
Yeah, that's the third frame of it.
Mid-transitional phase. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way, it's very fitting, actually.
Yes.
It was actually intentional.
Yes. That was kind of what Anton looked like before we fully figured him out.
It's kind of malformed. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're like molding clay and you can kind of see that it's turning into something, but in the middle, it's just a little malformed, a little hideous.
But it's going to come together eventually.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Beautiful.
what actually happened was I had like a copy of Wario Land 4 and I had a copy, like the jewel case of Crash Bandicoot 2, and then I just kind of started like slamming them together.
Yeah.
That's how the game was
That's how
made.
the game was born.
That makes
Yeah.
perfect sense, actually.
Okay, well, we mentioned Crash Bandicoot and Wario Land 4.
Yeah.
Those are obviously big influences on the game. For you personally, what were some of the like important games for you at the beginning of your relationship with games?
Yeah, just games in general. I would love to say, not even I would love to say, but I think that my awakening to games was the original PlayStation. Yeah, the little gray wonder. Um, Crash was it for me. Crash was my number one, and I played a ton of Crash 2. I played a ton of Crash Team Racing, and those two games really captivated me growing up because they were just, even though it was low poly, 3D graphics really hadn't gotten that far yet as far as real time stuff went. Crash just looked incredibly beautiful, and to this day, it still holds up to the degree where, even if the remakes come out, they don't hold a candle to what they were doing back in
Oh, yeah.
1997. So Crash was the number one for me, and I owe pretty much everything in my career to Crash in some fashion. And I say that without an iota of exaggeration, although there might be some layered on top, of course. Beyond that, of course, Spyro was another one that was, of course, very, prominent in my life. I wasn't quite as big of a Spyro fan, but not for lack of enjoyment. It wasn't quite the thing for me. But I've come to enjoy it even more these days. Like those games are just really fantastic. Wario Land, of course, extremely meaningful game for me. Really, all of them. I loved Wario Land 1, 2, 3 was a big one for me growing up. I think that game, I'm old enough to remember when Wario Land 3 was widely considered the best one, right? And then the conversation
The tables have
changed.
turned, man. It's
Yeah.
sick. It's sickening. People want to pretend like Wario Land 3 is bad, and it pisses me off, frankly.
It's wrong. It's dially wrong.
It's the pendulum swinging,
It's
it
completely
happens.
unique. Everyone,
Yeah.
you know what? The thing is, they're not even playing it. They just saw some guy on YouTube say, "Oh, 4 is the best one." Because listen to
Yeah.
these sounds. Wario says "whoa" in 8 different pitches.
Yep. And that's the thing. I think growing up, I loved Wario Land 4. But I think that I kind of came to resent it in a strange way as the conversation changed a little bit. You ever, this is the worst feeling in the world, but you ever love something dearly and then your opinion on it kind of changes because people speak about it in an irritating way?
Yes, I'm a big
All right.
Very,
Anton
very,
fan.
very relatable.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
with Wario Land 4, that's kind of what happened. Especially because, now there are two pretty prominent indie games that took that formula and changed it around a bunch. And I get the feeling that, a lot of the people talking about Wario Land 4 haven't actually played it.
Yeah, they haven't touched it.
That said, great game. I have a distinct memory of being in the back of my mom's car and wondering why my Game Boy was talking to me. So it definitely fucked me up in some ways. What other games did I love growing up? There were some weirder ones. Like my granddad had an Atari growing up, so I played a bunch of the old Activision games. So I really
Pitfall.
I loved stuff like Pitfall, but then the weird stuff, like I loved Keystone Capers. I remember playing that a bunch. Yeah, and so in the Antonblast, in the Mad Mall level, you see these. There's a room that is actually named after
Oh, it's
Keystone.
Keystone Capers with a K. I
Yep.
see.
And this room is designed in the same way as the singular level in the game, where it's just these horizontal floors that are completely straight. And I don't remember if Keystone Capers had this, but I believe that the planes that I put in there were inspired by that as just this kind of extremely primitive hazard. And so much of my relationship to games was just kind of these very strange formative experiences where when you're a kid, you're playing games in such a way that you're finding a lot of your own fun rather than what content is there. And so you're creating a lot of stories for yourself. So, me as a child, even though by that point the Atari was, 25, 30 years out of date, I still had so much fun with it, and I think that that's something that for me, like I tried not to lose that growing up, and I think maybe that's why a lot of the cinematic games that are coming out these days don't appeal to me quite as much because they're so concrete.
Yeah, they're not leaving
Yep.
as much to the imagination.
Yeah,
Linearity.
That's interesting to think about.
yeah,
With like, yeah, because you were talking about the Atari, like primitive graphics, like even at the time.
yeah,
But it does leave so much room for you to
yeah.
imprint your own. I love it. That's a great
I mean, yeah, you really need to, especially what was it, Adventure, the one with that nasty looking
just the
freak.
square, yeah.
Yeah. And to
Adventure's
grab
a
the key, like,
classic.
yeah, there's a dragon,
Yeah,
man. For
exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
This is an epic quest.
But I think the very interesting thing about that is that that style of play still exists because if you look at stuff, like the most popular stuff now is stuff. I just got turned on to Lethal Company a little bit ago,
Oh.
right? And to give you an idea of like how prehistoric I am, I have not been playing a lot of these games, right? A lot of these really cheap and cheerful multiplayer games. And they've quickly become some of my favorites just because you can create your own fun with people and just kind of tell your own stories. And me personally, I'm not going and doing role play. I'm not really that sort of guy. I am going in there in voice chat with my friends and we are just talking shit and laughing the whole time. But it's still very
immersed
much
in that way.
yeah, it's still very much the same kind of fun as that kind of Atari imagination and invention and the stories you're telling yourself. And I think that's interesting because it feels like the storytelling game, the stuff that is so heavily hell-bent on being cinematic, of course, you know, the Quantic Dream games, but then really kind of what Sony's doing and a lot of
Naughty
the
Dogs.
are doing.
Yeah.
That stuff is becoming more of a niche now, and I find that incredibly fascinating.
It's had its moment, I think. But I think people are realizing that there's just more to be taken from the medium. Nick and I talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
The idea that the aspiration to be as much like a movie as possible for games is like not the pinnacle of the medium.
No,
It's the
I
wrong
think-
way to go.
Yeah, I
It's
think
the
people.
wrong fork.
I think thankfully people are realizing that,
Yeah.
and the indie scene is definitely like evident of that.
It's a completely unique medium where you can make all kinds of art that can only exist through player interaction. And I feel like is really limiting to only try and replicate a Quentin Tarantino film
right.
or try and replicate my favorite movie. Like, wow, this looks just like a movie from 60 years ago. Great.
And not that there's no room at the table for that, but I think it's
Like,
nice that
clear
it's
it
not
up.
like only being the.
Yeah, all three of us agree. Don't even bother playing Ghost of Yotei.
Yeah.
Throw it in the trash.
Yeah. Oh no. I don't think I said that. My Uber driver told me that I should play that game. But no
Uber
disrespect.
drivers love Ghost of Yotei.
No disrespect,
No,
to
no.
be clear. But I do think like art is such a wide thing, right? And it's all about expression. And I do believe that there is, as Sam said, there is a lot of room for that kind of expression. But it is very interesting to me in that I guess where I would position myself is I don't believe that is making the best use of games as a medium. If you compare it to how Kojima makes games, right, where his games are deliberately, of course, extremely cinematic, right? And if you look at his Twitter feed, he makes a whole big deal of that. But I think that he makes fantastic use of the fact that you are playing a game. So much of it is deeply, incredibly interactive in a way that games are only games can do. So I think that if we're looking big budget AAA cinematic stuff, then pay attention to Kojima. That said, look at how the story of Deltarune resonates with people, right? And I'm not, a big Deltarune guy. I can't really speak to that, but I can say that the way the narrative has unfolded has really captivated a pretty large audience in a way that, again, only a game can do. So I think that you don't necessarily need to have a massive budget to do that either. And I guess that's the wonderful part of games. There's so much that you can do at every side, every part of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I deeply love video games.
As do we.
You're in the right place. Yeah. It's an infinite expanse. You can do anything. And the tools have never been more present.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so much I can say about that. Oh, the tools. Oh, the tools. Oh no.
Yeah, moving into, I guess, what exactly is your gaming philosophy then?
My gaming philosophy?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big question.
I mean, if we
Big
can't
thinkers
answer
with
it
big
now, we can,
minds.
we can come back to it at the end of the episode. But
I think let me ask, or let me answer a question with a question.
Okay.
So what does a gaming philosophy entail? Like, is that kind of like my approach to playing
What are you
games?
searching for? What makes a
Mm.
game outstanding to you? What is a game? What sets apart gaming from a movie or a book that makes it something exceptional that only a game can do, that you want to also harness and utilize in your own projects?
So I think I would have a multi-pronged answer to that, and that's something that a couple of years ago I wouldn't have been able to answer. I think even at the launch of Antonblast, I wouldn't have been able to articulate that well. Um, I think that the very simple, basic ass answer that would not actually be informative to anyone would be to say that I want to harness fun in games and make sure that games are fun. I think though that games have a wide range of expression available to them. So some games maybe are a bit more toyetic, right? If you look at something like Donkey Kong Bonanza, that whole game is a toy, and so much of the appeal is kind of just in smashing everything to pieces. But at the same time, I really love a game that can make me feel deeply. I love a game that can make me think. In recent times, I find myself being deeply motivated by social commentary, the way that culture evolves. Um, and even in Anton Blast, even though that's a game that I think I would categorize as being largely uh, comedic, largely satire, so much of that game is based off of my past life being a Florida man, growing up in the Floridian swamps, the Miami suburbs. Seeing so much of that stuff and how grungy it was, and seeing the melting pot of cultures, and seeing a lot of people who were like flatly failed by the system. I think that it was so interesting and fun to be able to kind of rethink that and put so much of that into the game, even if maybe a lot of it ends up being kind of just visual only or subtext. That to me, a truly exceptional game is able to communicate or convey the experiences and the feelings of the creators, right? And sometimes that's not necessarily so singular. Sometimes maybe that's the feeling of a greater team. But I guess all is to say that it would maybe be easier for me to answer by saying I'm not terribly moved by games whose inspirations are singularly other games. And I think maybe there's a bit of an irony to that, in that Anton Blast is a game that's largely categorized by most as being an evolution, or depending on who you ask, a pastiche of the Wario Land games. But I really tried to do a bit more than that with it, and I don't think necessarily that I always succeeded. But that for me is my philosophy. Can I use games to communicate my background, communicate my interests, my thoughts, my philosophies, my emotions, in a way that maybe other mediums aren't able to do? That's what I look for in games
yeah,
as well when I play
wow.
it.
Fantastic. And yeah, with the Anton Blast thing, I would say that there's a significant difference as well between taking inspiration from something and a clone,
Mhm.
to put it as like disparagingly as possible. But there are games that are just like, let's just make Dark Souls again. Let's just make Mario again. But at the same
Yep.
time, not every game where you press A to jump is a Mario clone.
Yep. 100%. 100%. And I think that I wasn't able to articulate that for some time as well. Um, there was a time when Anton Blast was especially during its inception and during the early days of development, the game was drawing so much from Wario stuff, because I think we didn't really have that thought process of, first off, how can we articulate stuff that is near and dear to us beyond games? But then also, just there was also the business decision, and that's something I can get into later, but the business decision of, there's only a limited audience that would be interested in buying the same thing again, but different and probably worse to them, right?
Yeah, the
So,
diehards.
right. So how do
Did
you
you
separate from that?
did you feel at all constrained by like trying to fit the Wario Land, Wario successor niche? Was there any sort of
Yeah.
release or catharsis in breaking free of that, even if it was, putting in more crates and changing it from pulling out beats to smashing stuff?
Yes, absolutely. It was the most freeing thing in the world.
Yeah.
It was a little scary because we had cultivated so much of the initial appeal on oh, this is like a Wario Land game, right? You remember the game that we did that felt like Mario Bros? Well, what if we did something that was like Wario Land? And Anton Ball didn't actually have this problem because the visual style, whilst being derivative of Mario, WarioWare, that was kind of part of the appeal in that it was kind of filtered through like a parody lens almost. And more importantly, the game design was already unique, right? That is fully original. That is its own thing. Whereas Anton Blast didn't have that. It had some left turns, but that was kind of it. And so when those changes were made, don't get me wrong, it was deeply punishing internally. The development was extremely difficult. And I have so much to say about them. There were so many lessons that were learned. But as far as the end result goes, absolutely it was the most freeing thing to say, actually, no, we are going to do our own thing. And I think that has helped it endure, where almost a year later, people still talk about the game. Maybe it's a smaller amount of people. Maybe I'm not so fortunate to have YouTube Shorts slop made about my game.
Yeah.
But
He's asking for it, folks. We got to get on it.
Yeah. The Anton door. Who is Paul? Many have theorized his origins.
Learn colors with Anton.
Yeah. Anton finger family. Is that still a thing?
I'm sure it must be. But I'm not the target audience.
But it's a very, very interesting point you make about games as a tool for expression, not just like as a developer, but as a player. You're expressing yourself through like every action you do within a game.
Yeah, 100%.
As a developer, if you're expressing your kind of interests and ideas, what are some of your interests and ideas or interests outside of gaming? I guess that kind of were brought in as influences.
Sure.
Your development.
So it's kind of a wide gamut at the risk of sounding self-aggrandizing. But I think one of the things that has struck me is that I love video games. I really dearly do, but I realize I actually don't play a lot of games. When I was in LA this weekend and I was asked, I got invited to a party and I was asked by pretty much everyone there because it was like kind of like an industry adjacent party. I'm not fully sure. I'm kind of checked out a lot of the time. No disrespect. It wasn't anything like, oh, the people were bad. I'm so out of it a lot of the time. But pretty much everyone there asked like, what games have you played this year?
What are you playing right now? Yeah.
Right. And I couldn't recall. That was like, I'm not picking up games that often these days, which is maybe deeply indicting, and I'm sure I'll get some hate mail for saying that. But
this guy doesn't even play games.
This guy doesn't even play
games. Get him off the show,
right? But I think my background, so much of my background was, playing in bands, playing music, because those were kind of like my first two loves, right? I had video games and I had music, and I think the video games contribute to the music, to be honest, because I remember. I had this distinct memory of picking up Sonic Adventure 2 and hearing the guitars in the music and thinking, whoa, you can do that? And Crash, of course, was also something that deeply resonated with me musically. The background there being the music for those games was done by Josh Mansell under the direction of Mark Mothersbaugh.
Devo.
Yeah. So I think that... I've got my energy dome in this room somewhere, but I love music culture, and that's such a wide range for me where rock stuff tends to not move me too much. It moved me a lot when I was younger, so I loved like a lot of like the 70s rock. I loved a lot of Sabbath. I loved a lot of Zeppelin, and also going on tours like a young artist, there was a lot of experience I got there that contributed to the sort of, I don't want to call it a nihilist view because I'm an optimist by nature, but I think like you see a lot of weird shit. Like you see people
when you're on the road, I'm sure.
Yeah. And even like in Miami, like you saw so many people like doing psychedelics,
doing side of the road.
The reality you're exposed to in Florida. Yeah, I'm sure.
So,
man.
So the music stuff definitely was a big interest for me, and that deeply impacted the way that I market my games as well, where I figured the best thing to do was to try to communicate that these things are an event rather than doing the typical indie game playbook, Wishlist Wednesday, Screenshot Saturday, and all that stuff. Well, no, actually, this is an event. This is a big deal. I also, I love movies. I love a lot of older films, especially. And these days, I've really been trying to like catch up on a lot of older stuff. I hadn't actually watched Taxi Driver all the way until recently, for example. So that was one for me where like I had seen King of Comedy, but I hadn't seen Taxi Driver. So that's kind of like a weird,
Backwards.
yeah,
Yeah.
backwards, right? Both just fantastic, fantastic movies. And again, like it really is kind of when you talk about the perspective of making games, how can you apply the lessons from cinema into games that in ways that maybe other people aren't necessarily, right? So I try to look at stuff like, cinematography. I try to look at, the colors that are used. What can you do to evoke certain emotions in ways that maybe other games aren't doing? You see the debate right now about, fixed camera angles versus the behind the back.
Over the shoulder, yeah.
Yeah. And, the loss of the fixed camera angle was an absolute tragedy for games, right? Artistically.
I hear you.
Oh yeah. For the AAA.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then like I still keep up with music, of course. I do. I want to just quickly state that before I forget. I do all the music for Antonblast, any Summit project that we do. So yeah, I still keep up with that. I'm planning to do a bit more stuff actually, stuff that might be just totally separate from a game. We're not 100% sure yet. But I would say besides those, I'm also very, very I don't talk about it publicly because now I'm under a microscope, but I am deeply invested in politics, just current events. Not in the sense that, how do I put this? You're never happy with any team, but some teams are better than others. And I think that that's about the most that I'm willing to say about that at this moment.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I think that it's important to stay informed. It's important to develop an opinion, and it's important to take efforts to make a substantive change, especially, it's a hot button item in America right now. This is, I think to the point about, I guess, games and just art in a general sense, I really do love stuff that has something to say. Devo was brought up as an example. They're known as the Whip It band, but in reality, what
There's
the
so
appeal,
much more.
the appeal of that band, the appeal of that band for me, besides the musicality, has been the fact that they have had something to say. And it's something that resonates today, really. And I think, again, that for me is just where a lot of stuff, particularly in games, falls flat, is that, many people are just like, I actually don't have anything to say. I just want to make a fun game.
It's just entertainment. Yeah.
We're all devolving.
Yep. De-evolution is real, and we're here to prove it.
It is true. It is all true. Everyone should listen to Hardcore Devo Volumes 1 and 2.
Yes. And the live album.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
That'd be a good costume for the next episode.
This guy's real smart.
Yeah.
Get our jumpsuits on.
Yeah.
Oh man, I would love to.
Rest in peace, Bob, too.
Or the Freedom of Choice with the pompadours, the Kindies.
New Traditionalist is a great album.
Oh shit! God, big fan.
Yeah. But yes, and just to wrap all that up, because I'm more multifaceted than entertainment. But just to wrap it up, I'm also just a big nature guy. Not really so much in like the way of camping, but I've been very lucky having moved to New England this year to be taking in
okay.
the
I'm
autumn
sure the
leaves.
scenery's real nice over there. Yeah.
Yes. Love the weather here. I love the outdoors, but then I also love architecture. Architecture is another love of mine. If I didn't get into games, I would have been an architect and made no money that way instead.
Well, you get to architect, other things through game dev.
Well, I got to do some of the level art in Antonblast, so that's close enough.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All the stuff that you got to break down, you got to make sure it falls down the right way, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is architecture... yeah, whatever. What do I know?
It's all the same.
It's all the same. Every job is the same. If it's not a creative job, it's a waste of time.
It's true.
You're just waiting until
live the art life. Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
Okay. Well, with game dev, when did your relationship with that begin?
So it's always been a part of my life in a weird way. I remember very distinctly being a Crash fan, having that as my special interest. I remember very distinctly going on CrashBandicoot.com back when the internet was a little less evil. And I remember Naughty Dog had put together this whole website with a bunch of development art. And they had office photos, and they had all these different materials that up to this point I'd never really seen anyone release, and they just shared it for all 4 games. Crash 1, 2, 3, CTR.
Awesome.
Yeah, on the website. They had a development timeline. They listed like, oh yeah,
That's so interesting.
this is something Bob Raffay drew, or here are the textures that Charlotte Francis did. And so they had actually went out of their way to give insight into the process. Oh, we use SGI computers. Oh, we got Adobe Photoshop for our textures. All this stuff. And I thought, wow, this isn't a game that just showed up. This is something that was actually made by people. And I'm a people. I think that I could probably do this. And so up to that point, I realized at that point that I could start coming up with game ideas, and I wouldn't know how to make them yet, but I could start. And so I remember my very first game design was I had drawn out the characters on paper, and then I had cut them out. And so the very literal form of paper design, the game design was the game, frankly. And so my game was moving them around. And I had like drawn out the UI and cut. Yeah, like it wasn't even like, oh, this is like I had cut up the characters and I just moved them around. No, this was like
moving them through a level.
Moving them through a level.
Wow, that's awesome.
Cutting out like the parts of the health bar. And of course it was all really crude because I was maybe 6 years old.
That was going to be my next question. Okay.
I was
right
young.
On.
But then I realized that if my games were made out of paper, then that would limit the audience, right?
How am I going to make money off of this?
Accessibility is everything, and I think that's a big part of why the industry at large is pivoting away now from the idea of exclusives, right? So many people are console agnostic. Now, I was ahead of the curve because I had realized this when I was 6 years old. So I went online and I started looking into making games. What program do I use to make games? And so I discovered a tool called Game Maker. Well, that seems just about right. I want to make games, use Game Maker.
Right in the name, yeah.
Yep. And so I downloaded it, and I did not understand how to use it at all. But Lord, did I try. And so I started trying to figure things out in drag and drop, because Game Maker at the time, I think they still have this, but it's like actually like probably pretty good now. But at the time, they had like their own sort of visual programming, and so you would basically just drag from the side the actions that you wanted your object to do. And so I had grabbed some sprites from, it wasn't Spriter's Resource. That I don't think that was a thing yet, or if it was, then it wasn't quite where. It was the Shy Guy Kingdom. That was the name of the website. It's not around anymore. And so I grabbed a bunch of sprites that were...
Rest in peace.
Yes, rest in peace. I owe you so much. But I grabbed some sprites that were both rips and some customs, and I threw them into Microsoft Paint so that the alpha channel was removed and there was no transparency. And then I started trying to composite all this in Game Maker, and then I also drew some stuff in the Paint program, and yeah, it was really bad. It wasn't good at all. And it barely worked, and it crashed a bunch, but you know what? I was making games and I was figuring it out.
Exactly.
So from there, I joined the Crash Bandicoot forums, the old Crash Mania forums, which again are no longer around. Rest in peace.
At this point, are you still like less than 10 years old, or?
I joined the Crash forums when I was about 9 years old.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, many such cases.
That's about right. Yeah,
many such cases. Way too early online.
Yep, many such cases. And the thing that's so funny about this is that the culture has not changed. The venues have changed. Now they're on Discord, but it's still just the same. The fact that I can be subjected to a 9-year-old's opinion, and more often than not, I probably will be, is an affront to God.
Yeah.
But I digress. So I went on the Crash forums, and from there, that's when I started talking to people who I ended up continuing to work with through my 20s. But we would just make these crappy Crash fan games, and then I would go on the forums and start typing out like my game ideas and the stuff that I wanted to make. And I was like, I'm gonna make this, guys. Oh, and it's going to have online play, and it's gonna be like You know,
Peter Molyneux over here, just like
yeah.
yeah.
I had come up with something that was like Donkey Kong 64, but like my OCs, basically.
Yeah.
It was going to be like a 2D platformer. And I remember getting completely reamed by people because they were saying to me, they were saying, you don't know how to make online play.
Keep dreaming, kid. You don't know
Yeah.
shit.
I was like, no, I do. Yeah. And people saying like, you're not funny because I would try to.
That's the
I would
worst.
try. Yeah, I would
That's
try
the
to make
worst.
jokes.
That's
And
worse than
Lucas-
your dream is dead.
Right? And so Luca's laughing now, you know, now I'm
Wow.
you know, I'm doing all this stuff.
Fueled by venom. Yeah.
Right?
Now I got a whole server that tells me scream for 20 minutes straight is hilarious.
Right? You know, and now they're the ones that I think are unfunny.
Oh,
Suck it, barfy man.
Everyone becomes old at some point. But that was kind of where it came from. I had faffed about with a bunch of other things like Dark Basic, because I wanted to do 3D stuff. And so Dark Basic was one that you would put in like a mail order for, and then they would send you like a box with a CD in it, and you
Mail
would,
orders.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And so that's how you would get the engine. But I realized pretty quickly that my brain did not work for code, and so the box just kind of sat there, and that was $50 down the drain.
Oof.
Many such cases.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that was it. You know, and
That's what began.
yeah, and eventually that turned into something professional. I don't know how much of that we want to get into, but
However much you're willing to share. If you want to do like a truncated kind of at a glance.
yeah, I'll just go real high level with it. But I, after many years, you know, I did a bunch of other things. I followed music for a while, and you know, living with parents, like you don't really have to, you know, worry about too much a lot of the time, right?
Mhm.
Like, you know, my relationship with my family was kind of bad a lot of the time, and you know, that was you know, that is what it is. But I think that also
Certainly.
meant that I guess that meant that I kind of had to figure out my shit pretty quickly.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate at the very least to have housing and such, even if my relationship kind of sucked.
Yeah.
But I had tried to start a couple of bands. I had toured a little bit. I had played with a couple of people. I had done some recordings and stuff, which I don't think are even floating around because everyone has a fucking recording. And
I hear you.
and so, yeah, I had done that for a little bit, tried to get a couple things off the ground, but it was impossible to get anyone like really excited enough about it to commit to it past like we've done like 3 shows, or we did like, you know, we played a couple of things in like North Carolina or something, right? And
It's tough, man. Scheduling is like the toughest shit when you're all adults, and it's like, God damn, no one has time for this. Fucking hell.
100%. My interests at the time were pretty singular also. Like I was really intense, and I think I wasn't creatively disciplined enough or creatively varied enough to make anything interesting. So it all worked out. And at the same time, I'm starting to talk to some of my friends from the Crash Forum days, and you know, I started just talking about like the bullshit game ideas I had. Like, oh, what if I made like a game about you know, the red guy that I had as my forum OC. Like, what if we actually just tried to make that as like a serious thing? You know, not thinking that it could be commercially viable or anything, but just, you know, we joked about that for so long. What if we made one that was actually kind of good? And so that eventually became what turned into Antonblast. I had been pitching that around since like 2016, you know, so it was like a long, you know, 8 years from start to finish. You know, however long it was, it could have been 2017, 28, I don't remember, but it was definitely, even still, like it was anywhere from 6 to 8 years. And that was like on and off, but I had also pitched this idea of Demolition Donkey, and we had been talking about that internally, like, oh man, Battletoads Arcade, that's such a great game. What if we did another one of those? And so we started, you know, playing with some ideas. We dug out Game Maker again. Tried to learn that, tried to figure out what we can do with it. And then at some point I got really big balls and I was like, actually, I'm going to just fly out to E3 and take this to Devolver unannounced and see if they'll publish it. And I did that. I went over. They didn't have any appointments, so they tried to shoo me away. But then I just kind of walked past them, and I sought out
straight out of a movie. My goodness.
Yeah, it sounds so cool, but to be honest, I was just a dumb kid, really wide-eyed. And I sought out, basically, you know, I sought out Mike Wilson, who was the founder of Devolver, and I said to him, "Hey, you don't know me, but I'm Tony, and you're going to sign my game." And he said, "Oh, okay. Well, I don't handle that, but here's our greenlight team." And so then and there, I was demoing the game, and
Wow.
and I was a nervous wreck. So I told the guy, like, "Oh, you're doing this wrong, or you can
Hmm.
do this attack this way." And he was pretty
Let me
good.
just grab that controller for you.
Kinda, I didn't do that, but it was close. And so yeah, he wrapped that up and he said, "All right, let's keep in touch." And I thought to myself, "Damn, this is really going somewhere." And then long and short, they didn't sign it. And so the game didn't really go anywhere. But the experience kind of gave me the itch, right? And it was a little bit like I've gotten to experience this part of the game industry by going to E3, this part of the game industry that doesn't really exist anymore. This very much, I would describe it as kind of like there was like a tier above, and now the industry is like it's been so deprofessionalized, which works out well enough for people like me who are just kind of punks. But
People like us, yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah,
just
right. At the time, I was like, man, I could be like them, you
Mhm.
know. And then many, many, many things happened, and then Anton Blast came about, and that's where we are now.
Beautiful.
But somehow I had just changed industries, and it was the best thing that I had ever done because this is it. This is all I want to do.
Very good.
That taste, you were hooked. Very, very
Yeah.
understandable. If I could quit my job tomorrow and just do this, I would instantly. I would throw it all away. But
Right?
my wife doesn't listen. It's just okay to say that.
I would throw it all away.
It would
all
all be
away.
gone.
It would all be gone.
It would build up eventually. It's fine.
It's fine. It's okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
Wow. Anton Blast.
Oh,
Let's get
goodness.
to it. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay. Well, what do you want to know?
So you launched officially last year, yeah?
Yeah. December 3rd, I think.
But on the main menu screen of the game, the year is kind of
Scratched out.
what's going on there,
Yeah.
I need some insight.
Yeah, so I was responsible for most of the UI design in the game. That's just something I like doing, and it's even getting like fixed up and updated in some updates because like stuff like the pause menu is just kind of ugly. So we were like, well, okay, let's change it out. But one of the things I liked doing was anytime we needed to update the copyright notice, like I had done one that was kind of nice in like pixel font back when we launched the 2022 demo. And then when we launched a demo, I think in 2023, I just kind of like scratched over it and wrote I wrote a 3. So it's like, yeah, we got to change it. And it's just a demo, so it's fine. It's kind of funny. But then when the game launched, I did that again. So it says 2022, no, 2020, no, 2024. And that was it. And I think whenever we do the update, we're probably going to do 2025 if we haven't done that already.
Perfect. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
keep changing the color.
Yeah.
It'll match the Brulo levels, the new Brulo levels. or
Yes, the
something.
new Brule levels with the new controllable Brulo that we were absolutely doing.
Yes, that everyone's just salivating for.
Yep. And the Danton levels, don't forget.
Oh, right, of course.
Yeah, yes.
How could I ever?
Yes, of course. That's an exclusive here, folks.
Yeah, everyone hear that? Everyone, we'll clip that. We'll just put that up. Just a little scoop.
Yep.
Yeah, well, actually, weren't those originally both the Kickstarter kind of stretch goals, Danton and Brulo?
Yeah, and thank God we didn't get those.
I mean, yeah, the initial extra 3 seemed like a lot alone. I mean,
Yeah.
12 levels doesn't sound like a lot, but they are so insanely packed full of stuff to do and see and explore and grab that
Right.
even those extra 3 must have been torturous to make.
Yeah, because the thing was, we didn't originally plan for the game to be on Kickstarter, right? It was originally meant to be a game where we just got a publisher to do it because Anton Ball Deluxe had done pretty well. So we figured, okay, well, we have a pretty decent reputation and certainly someone's going to want to fund this. And then we pitched to 30 different publishers and nobody said yes for some reason. Everyone told us no. So I thought all hope was lost, but all due respect, our programmer at the time, Massimo, was like, let's just do a Kickstarter. And so I thought, well, okay, sure. And so I tried to look into Kickstarters that I thought were viable because most of the time no one funds a Kickstarter for what it's actually worth, right? And the only one that seemed comparable and also kind of doable was Shovel Knight. Because Shovel Knight, they had asked for $75,000, and then they had built in like the extra campaigns. And I thought, that's interesting. So maybe what we could do is ask for similar amounts of money and then find external funding after the fact. And if we only got the 75K, then we could do like a compressed version of the game we had in mind. But if we got the full amount of money that we need, or if we got a higher amount of money, then we could very easily do a version that's closer to what we had in mind. So the idea always was to do those 12 levels. It was never meant to be 9 levels and then we were like adding more. That would have sucked. But even though we had ideas for Brullo and Danton, like I had an idea for Danton where the idea was that his marriage was failing. He loves Nina so much and she loves him. They are like the ideal couple. But in this case, his construction business was failing. And so the game would have begun with Nina handing him divorce papers. And I remember getting so much pushback internally for pushing this.
Why did you do that to him?
Well, why would you do that? And I would do it. I would do it again. I would do it again.
He's already so tormented.
Right, he is. And so I think I got it out of my system. But I think that would have been so immensely difficult. And the thing that I hadn't considered, which is the whole point of bringing that up, was that Yacht Club went through such hell to get those expansions out, right? And they talked about this at length, like years. And, the final version of Shovel Knight's like a $40 game, I think. And they talked about the business of that a lot. And, King of Cards is probably one of the best versions of Shovel Knight that you can play, but almost nobody played it compared to Shovel of Hope. That's just how it goes. So, and we've seen a similar trajectory with stuff like, the updates that we've done. People come back to play it, but the amount dwindles each time. And so I feel very, very good that we weren't on the hook for that, because I feel like if we ever wanted to do those things, if we were to just do them as their own game, people would be a lot more excited for them, I feel. But already it's bad enough we're on the hook for Kickstarter bosses and hard
backers,
boss rush. Yeah,
how dare you?
I know. Yeah. I remember going to Peanut Park and seeing the sign and everything. Be like, what? Am I missing like a key item or something? I had to look that up to see what was going on.
Yeah.
Because the computer locked away. What does it mean?
Right.
Just right. Anton ARG.
They're defragging it. The big thing really was that we would have loved to have all that stuff in at launch, but our investors deemed that we had to release the game December 3rd, and that was it, which is why, the Switch version wasn't great at launch. No disrespect to them, because I'm still good friends with them and such, but I think that there's a lot of stuff that happens at a level that's beyond even my understanding, right? And sometimes you lose fights that you really ought to be winning.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to just have the game out and be done with it and not be working on it all this time later. But c'est la vie, that's what happens.
Yeah, they went to the Bohemian Grove. Moloch said it comes out December 3rd. It comes out December 3rd. That's just the way it is.
Exactly. Look, if the piggy bank says it, then that's what it is.
That's just what it is.
Yep.
It's sad reality. But yeah, tragically so, fans out there, maybe make your own Danton fan game, and that could hold you over a little while, I guess. If you're a real Danton fanatic, if you can't live without Danton.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's so much out there, right? I mean, the fan content blows me away. I frequent AO3 a lot and see a lot of really fascinating Anton fan fiction.
Did you say AO3?
And I think that I think that the fans have really interesting ideas about these characters. And sometimes I think maybe we'd all be better off by handing them over to them, right?
Anton, artwork of Anton was a picture of him and Peppino very aggressively groping each other and making out on Twitter. And I was like,
we're kind of just like this, right?
Yeah, they're locked together.
The guy who drew that ended up becoming our community manager.
Well, there you go. Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Yeah, wow.
And so it's official art now.
Inspiring story.
It's canon.
It's canon retroactively. I really kind of I have a distaste in some ways for the kind of intent of people, not just really for Antonblast specifically, but I think just the way that people love to think about like crossovers and multiverses or whatever. But I think that image specifically is the exception. That's okay, you know? That's all
That's
right.
postmodern. I like that.
That's
It is postmodern.
It is. It's kind of
It's
abstract.
factually postmodern.
It's abstract. It kind of makes me feel something. You know, I'm not sure what it makes me feel. I think it's like raw carnal rage, and I feel a little like a caveman discovering fire.
Wow.
And so there's a little bit of a mixture of fear and anger and sexual energy.
Yeah, some sort of arousal, strange arousal.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just like Itagaki, working out Dead or Alive.
May he rest in peace, Itagaki.
But anything else with respect to like multiverse or it's a piece of tower canon to Antonblast or whatever other thing, my honest thought with that is genuinely just
go to hell.
That might be the dumbest question I've ever received. It's up there.
Okay.
I feel very.
I strike that one off the docket, Nick.
Let me scratch up topic 4.
I feel a lot of kinship with Harrison Ford on that kind of thing. Like, it's just one of those things. I feel. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm never going to tell people to not enjoy that stuff, and I would be lying if I said that the different communities crossing over one another wasn't deeply helpful to us. And I think that that's the thing, right? Like, I think I can reconcile the fact that I find that sort of thing to be deeply anti-art to also, I think I can see it that way, but then also recognize that it is something that is deeply helpful and also part of community, right?
Yeah, two things can be true at once.
Yeah, like I'm not going to go and kick down some child's sandcastle just because he's forming the Twin Towers or something. Like I think it's okay for him.
They're asking to be knocked down.
I think it's okay to enjoy things in that way, even if I don't necessarily share the same joy.
Okay, there you go. So if you want to draw Anton with
that can be the headline.
Why? Go ahead, but keep it to yourself.
This is starting to that shit. This is starting to become political in a way that is not representative of my beliefs. Okay, but love wins, my friends.
Oh no, they fused. Oh, I guess in a way, when you think about it, maybe the fusion in itself.
The fusion dance.
Yeah.
Let's just go full Avatar with it.
Oh yeah. So the most important question, the one that I really need to get to the root of, what is Paul? Because when I was going back to I was looking for the micro demons to draw our little things in the announcement picture. I was going to the first level and I found a Paul in a hidden room. What is that?
Next question.
Wow. Can't even get an answer. That's crazy. Well,
okay.
In regards to launching the game and having some hindsight now, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned since? And how are you going to apply that to your future?
Oh, man. Where do I start? So let me just open up my drawer here.
Oh, here we go.
But, okay. So there genuinely is so much, right? I think that... How do I put this? I need to find a way to put all of these gently and not do them in such a way that's spiteful.
I go all out. We're friends here.
So I don't know that I would necessarily deem this as a lesson, but I think that I'll start by saying that the customer is always right. The player is always right. And this is something that I actually maintain deeply as a design philosophy. It's something that I've gotten a lot of guff for among some of my peers. Even internally, like this was a big problem among some of us. But for my part, I think that bad design is something that absolutely exists. And if the player doesn't understand your design, that's not a fault of the player, that's a fault of your design. And I think that Antonblast, I mean, the thing is that happens, okay? That happens. And look, there's only so much that you can account for that, right? But barring the most extreme cases, I think that it really is up to you as the developer to make a point of making it so the player has a fighting chance, right? And don't get me wrong, this isn't to say make frictionless games. I tend to find a lot of modern Nintendo output to be a little brain numbing for my part because they are like, such deeply frictionless games. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. That does make them appealing. Games are art after all, and so that can account for many, many different styles of design. But I do think that Anton Blast, in my mind, when I was making the game, I perceived it to be something that was kind of a swing at a mass market game, even if it was like an indie game, even if it was kind of weird. My goal was to make something that anyone could pick up and play. And I don't think that it succeeded in that fully, even if it was a game that saw a lot of success. I would account a lot of that. Hi, Kitty. I would attribute a lot of that to a sort of stubbornness in a lot of the design that's present in the game. Some of it's deliberate, some of it's not. And, I think the game could have benefited from much better tutorialization in many ways. I think that in some cases, I think that we would have benefited from asking the player to interface with some of the deeper mechanics more. I guess requiring that more often would have been better in some ways. So, for example, the clutch boost, I had come up with the clutch boost mechanic, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of. I think that it makes Anton Blast extremely fun to play. But the issue that I find with it, among many, but the biggest issue, first and foremost for me, is the fact that it does not, you're not required to use it ever. And I thought this was fine at the time because I figured players don't necessarily want to play that way. They're going to have there's going to be a big spectrum in terms of how people are going to play the game. And I think that if someone maybe is just not as good at the game, then they shouldn't have to engage with that. And I think that was a mistake in the sense that it was, number one, critically underestimating the ability for a player to grasp a mechanic like that. If your tutorialization is good, then that's no problem. And especially if you are forcing the player to engage with it, not in a way that's hostile, because I don't like friction that is hostile to the player. It shouldn't be something that's punishing.
No, it's guiding you.
Yeah, precisely. So if you're engaging with the mechanics as a matter of course, then I think that becomes much more interesting. And I would say that, in my mind,
Interesting.
is a big part of why Anton Blast in the conversation is often referred to as being something that's like, oh, this is like very unwieldy to play, or it's a little boring, because people play it in a number of different ways. If you think about, I'm sure you guys are online enough to have seen like that split screen of Mario 64, where it's like one guy saying this game sucks,
Yes,
and then the other guy's like, this game's fucking awesome. And the guy saying this game sucks is playing it by holding the analog stick directly forward and walking to Peach's castle. And then the other guy who's saying the game's awesome is like triple jumping and diving and doing all these techniques, which are not even particularly advanced, but they are like, the advanced movement tech. No, you don't. But I think that that's the thing that I thought that the people who were playing the farmer way would have gotten the same degree of enjoyment out of it. And I think that I had critically underestimated, again, the ability for the average player to understand those mechanics. Because I think if they were more intrinsic to the flow of the game, that would have been really special. And I think that if we ever revisited the concept, and that's something that I would really try to focus on, is try to focus on like the unique elements of the platforming and making that more integral to the experience rather than tertiary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's very interesting.
Yeah. The other thing that I would say in terms of lessons learned, it's often said that you shouldn't be afraid of killing your baby in a creative environment. And I think that it's also important for a creative leader to not be afraid of killing other people's babies too.
As God said to Abraham, yes.
Yes. So that would be, if you want another soundbite between that and the sandcastle, I think that both the sandcastle and don't be afraid to kill other people's babies would be a good thing to attribute to me.
Twisted
writing.
developer
Yeah,
said
our
what?
YouTube shorts. Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Tony Grayson says to
Tony
do what to
Grayson
the
says
Twin
some
Towers
crazy
with
shit.
babies in it?
Hello.
Yeah, start sentence mixing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to. Just when Cason's comes out, I got a whole YouTube poop plan for the announcement. Don't worry.
Oh my God. But yeah, I think that I tried very hard to be a nice boss on Antonblast, and the thing is, I don't believe in changing that. I think that I don't believe in like yelling at people. I don't believe in punishing people. It's not like that. But I think that there does come a time where, as a director, you have to make tough choices, and sometimes you can't necessarily control how people react to that, but you can control, what that means for the production of the game. And I would say that a lot of the failings of the game stem from kind of a desire to keep everyone happy.
Yeah, kind of compromise. You feel like you
Yeah.
compromise the vision a little bit.
Yeah, like it's not even necessarily compromising the vision because I really hate to be like, oh man, like I knew exactly what was right and this is my vision and
Fair
all
enough.
that.
Yes.
I never want to say that. I never want to come off as self-aggrandizing in that way or egotistical because it's not like that. But the job of a director, irrespective of whether the vision is yours, because a lot of times like the concept will come from someone else on the team, but you're assigned to be the director. The job of the director is to maintain a consistent vision and guide the team to that vision. And I think that on Anton Blast, I didn't do nearly as good of a job on that as I could have, despite the fact that it was my baby in so many ways. I think that there was a lot of trying to compromise differing visions, and that shows in the final product, in my mind.
Interesting.
Is there an example in particular that stands out to you? Something that you wish you had changed or maybe not permitted?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at a high level, because if I start going into like the nitty gritty, then I think it starts turning into like, direct call outs and stuff.
Yeah, it almost becomes personal. Yeah.
I never want to do that. But I would say that one of the big things was there was a pretty big argument and warring factions internally about the level length. I always erred on the side that even if you do levels that maybe are a little larger than your average platformer, you're not doing Mario courses. These aren't levels you can beat in sub-minute, right? But there was a much smaller part of the team that was responsible for handling level design that believed, well, actually, no, the levels should actually be like extremely large because we had promoted them as being like mini Metroidvanias. My philosophy was that the promotion of that was more meant to imply the overall construction of them rather than the size and the scope. But I think that this led to a lot of strife because if you look at levels like Mysterious Glass House, that's a level that I believe it's the longest level in the game. And it can take people upwards of half an hour to play, which I think is absurd. Nobody wants to be in a platformer level that long. It's not a Metroidvania biome, no matter how hard you want it to be. And you compare that to a level like I designed the Pinball Mire and Mad Mall levels myself, and those levels were done extremely quickly, and so they are as proud as I am of those levels, they are very splintered in the community just because they are gimmick levels. Public opinion of them is splintered, I should say. But what I really appreciate about Pinball Mire in specific, and Mad Mall to a lesser extent, and I think Slower Sewer has this as well, Boiler City, there's a sort of succinctness to those levels that's really great. And the other thing that's great about all those levels that I had cited is that they kind of have like an environmental narrative to them, right? And so if you look at other levels like Crimson Factory or Concrete Jungle or Mysterious Glass House to a lesser degree, but the two I cited there, in retrospect, I think that I really would have liked to push harder on those having more of a narrative to them visually. I had some ideas for them that I never really got to, and I wish that I pushed harder to do that. That wasn't even a case of anything other than want to do it, don't have the bandwidth, don't have the time. But the big thing, not to get too lost in the sauce, the big thing with those levels that I cited is just the fact that they're long. They're really, really, really long. The factory, not quite so much, but Concrete Jungle's pretty long. The Bomb Candy Mines level was a real nightmare to get down. That was slammed in playtesting. And so it basically kind of just became this exercise in reductive
Yeah.
reductive design, because it's very expensive and time consuming to make new things.
Hmm.
But at the very least, if you have a level design that's maybe not, resonating with people, you can at least make it shorter. And so the net of that, it's not anywhere near ideal, but the net of that means that you end up with something that, even if it's not the best, it's brief and you get through it. And
Hmm.
I think that the level design is something that is very contentious for a lot of people with respect to the conversation around this game. And I understand why, because there's a lot that I'm very dissatisfied with.
Very insightful.
I hope so. And so that's my latest game.
Wonderful. Thanks for your time, Tony. We'll see you next time. Oh,
God.
everybody.
But yes, where were we?
I suppose, are there any burning questions about Antonblast that you have left, Nick, before we kind of look towards the future? Unless we want to keep, riffing about the game.
I mean, I had one question, and
Every
seemed to
time
be
you
poorly
ask it, you
received
get-
Okay.
by Tony and by the Lord. So I guess not.
Then go ahead.
Come on, man. What's the deal with Paul?
No, you're not getting that.
Next question.
See? All right.
All right. Well, I
Nice.
suppose- yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Go for it,
It's
Nick.
fine. I feel like the second it starts exiting my mouth, there's going to be a little rat chewing through my Ethernet cable or something.
The fury's just building underneath the surface. I can see you.
Is there any
Bubble it up.
DNA of Demolition Donkey, you think, that made it into Anton Blast outside of the obvious demolition aspects?
Yes. I mean, this is kind of tangential to the explosion or the destructive demolition aspect, but I had re-enlisted our sprite artist from Demolition Donkey, which became Harm Yarders. I had enlisted the sprite artist that worked on that game as a VFX artist on Anton Blast. And so the explosion graphic that's used all over the game is actually the same one that was in the Demolition Donkey demos all the way back in 2018 or whenever we had put those out. And the Anton Blast Kickstarter demo actually uses the same graphic verbatim, like completely wrong size and everything, because it was made for a different game. But that was how we had to do it at the time. And then I think also just that process of making that game was a learning experience as well. Like that kind of that was a big inspiration in terms of how we had built our graphics system and in terms of how we built our pipeline for doing sprites. It wasn't nearly as refined, but it had informed so much of how we would do it.
Yeah. The whole
Yeah.
experience.
So, Don is out there somewhere.
You mentioned you worked on most of, if not all, the music.
Yeah, all of the music in the game. Yeah, all of it.
How was that process like? What was that like for you? And how was it different from your band projects and your approach to this? How did that kind of
It was a lot
differ?
better for one. It was actually pretty good music for one. And I can say that I think I can say that safely. I think that people like the music for the game. So I think it's okay for me to say that.
I think it's the most viewed Anton Blast anything is Happy Hour.
Yeah. I just looked today, actually.
Over 2 million.
Over 2 million now, which is insane.
People digging it.
Yeah, and so I think with all the streams put together between like YouTube and Spotify and Apple and all that, I think it's probably up to like a few million now, and I think that is such a weird thing for me to think about, because I had done like so many like video game covers and all this stuff, and it didn't really get like any attention ever. So knowing that people really resonate with the music it's kind of like its own reward, right? Just knowing that people like that specifically, and it's encouraging, because I love making music.
Yeah.
It differed a lot from band stuff, because when I was doing band stuff, I was really just thinking in terms of like a very traditional arrangement, right? So, guitar, bass, drums, sometimes you had a keyboard, and then you would have a singer on top. And I realized what a limiting sort of thought process this was, because when I had gotten into doing game music, I actually originally started by doing like chiptune stuff and tracker stuff. So I'd started with like Deflamask, and I would do covers of game tracks I liked. I think one of the first things that I tried doing was a Game Boy version of Break the Targets from Smash Brothers Melee, which was an insane thing to try to transcribe in the first place, but then to also compress that down to 3 channels. But it came out pretty good still. I heard that again recently, and I thought, oh, I actually did okay with that. But when I started experimenting with other instrument types, I had started by experimenting with like romplers, and now I have this big synth rack that has like all the old like 90s MU Proteus units and all that. And I love that sound. I think the big thing for me was realizing what a wide sonic frequency I was afforded by being able to bring in all these different kinds of instruments. And this is something a bunch of other people had figured out a long time ago, and I was just late to the party. So it's not like I was happening upon anything particularly remarkable or unique, but for me, it was like my third eye had opened. So that by far was the most interesting thing about moving into this kind of music. But then there was also the evolution over time, because at the start of development, my thought process was to make something that felt like a GBA game by design. So if you listen to like Anton Ball Deluxe or the early demos for Antonblast, like you can hear that sound. Like it's a little compressed. It's kind of a stark mix. And then similar to the thought process on the game design, if it's not going fully bombastic and it's not your own expression, then it's going to be very hard for that to resonate with people beyond a very specific subset of a niche. So a niche of a niche. And so that's when I started applying like, modern mixing and mastering techniques. That's when I started recording like live guitar on top of it, doing solos. Later on, that becomes more experimental, where like the Pinball Meyer beat track, I'm just outright like singing on top of it and doing like Crash to Insanity, Spiral Mouth style like a cappella track. And I'm not like someone who had done like a lot of singing before or anything, and so I think that for me was by far the most rewarding thing, was realizing not only do I have so much more available to me than I did when I was doing band music, but I actually have even more available to me than I thought I had at the start of this project. And in that sense, it really changed my relationship with music, where I realized oh, there is so much, like even in band stuff, even if I'm writing for a band, I can start applying more synthesizer work. I can start applying elements from the games and create something that's totally different from anything I'd done before. And so that for me was by far the most interesting thing, in that I had just it changed my world.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll add to that is that it made me reevaluate band stuff, in that there was a time that I loved it and there was a time that I hated it. And then when I came to the end of it and I've had time away from it, I realized, oh, I actually still love it, just in a different way. I see the value in it now. It's made me so open-minded, I guess, is where I'm going.
That's so
with that.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a reinvigorated passion and love for music.
Yeah.
In a completely different way too. I think games are the only way, really. I'm pretty biased, but
You certainly are.
well, I mean, I feel like it's the only place you can make really unique original music, like the Spiral Mountain a cappella pinball songs.
Yeah, because
and people want to listen to that driving through out of their car or at the gym.
It's interesting, because I think so much of my approach was that I wanted to try to make stuff that you would want to listen to outside of the context of the game, right? But still was good scoring, because I think there are so many like indie game bangers out there, right? Quote. But I think that, to go back to, for example, like the Deltarune Undertale example, like that is video game music to me, like as like an archetype. That is what that is. Not to go all Tommy Tallarico, oh, the bleeps and bloops. Like I don't mean it in that way, but like I wanted to try to do something that had a little more grunge to it, a little more edge to it. Just again, having gone through like the touring life, having seen sides like the music industry, having had my experience in Miami, I really wanted to try to do something that was like, okay, well, I've seen some hard life shit. How can I articulate that and not have it be like, 90s video game sound font .sf2. And I don't know again that it was necessarily fully successful in that way, but I do think that video game music listeners tend to be a little more genre agnostic in some ways. So, you know, a lot of people who are, exclusively listening to pop music, and I don't mean to say like, VGM is better than everything else. It's not that at all. It's just, it's all music. But a lot of people who are listening to pop music, they're going to be like, okay, I like rock, or I like country, or I like rap. And, maybe they'll have like some tertiary genres that they enjoy, but they kind of have like the one subset that they enjoy. But then you see, again, to go to the example of Antonblast, not to be, egotistical, but just because it's front of mind. There are so many different genres that are covered in that between, again, you have like the acapella, Pinball Meyer, and then you have the kind of Limp Bizkit-esque metal in Deviled Gardens. And then you have the sort of disco approach in Bomb Candy Mines. And I think that there's just this really wonderful thing that people who like VGM often tend to be very understanding of that. They like to listen to lots of different things.
A wide range. They're willing to explore that. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Because it's kind of this method of discovery for them. I think that's the thing. And sometimes that can be a gateway drug for a lot of people. Like, PS1 games were like my gateway into like D&B and jungle music, to the degree where
So good.
there are like so many jungle artists that I adore that if I hadn't had that experience as a kid, I might not even be familiar
If
with
I
the
wasn't
genre.
playing Ridge Racer, I wouldn't have heard this shit. Yeah.
Exactly, Ape Escape, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I only listened to video game music until I played like Tony Hawk Underground. I heard all these bands like, well, people can sing and I don't hate it. What the hell's going on?
Yeah. I mean, those games have amazing music.
Great curation there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's some link between a musical background and becoming a
game
I don't know what
creator.
it is.
Yeah. We've talked to
There's a through line there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's probably something to be said about that because music, even compared to like, drawn art, I think something about it is by its very nature, very theatric, right? And if you have something that is so theatrical as music, you're kind of usually trying to tell a story with it in some way. And I think there probably is some kind of through line where, when you're making music and when you're making games, you're kind of trying to do the same thing. And similar to games, people often have their own relationships with music when they're listening to it. So I think that there's probably some science there about the through line. Yeah.
Same way, trying to pierce the theory, go beyond the numbers.
Do the research.
Yes,
exactly. Yeah.
Code. It's the Matrix, maybe. I don't know. Beyond me. I'm just an interviewer. What do I know? Yeah. So.
Anything from you, Nick? Any questions for Tony right now?
Well, it's all said and done. The game's been out. How do you want people to feel when they play Antonblast? And do you feel like that has been achieved with the people who played it?
You feel like you've succeeded in instilling that?
I would like for them to be angry.
You got the rage button, you got the scream button.
I would like for them to be angry. I would like for them to feel like Antonblast is kind of a release for them. It's kind of an outlet for their anger. I want them to be able to use Antonblast as kind of a form of protest. So if you're feeling wronged by the state of the world, and if you believe in a better future, then I want you to hold that shoulder button and let out the longest scream that you can, and maybe use the analog stick to kind of, adjust the pitch depending on how you're feeling. That's what I want them to feel. And also do it in real life, pending your neighbor's approvals, of course.
But
if it's a reasonable hour, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Make like Anton, hit him with that clutch boosted hammer swing, tell him to get out of here.
Yeah.
Madam.
Yeah.
But I think that the truth of that answer, because it isn't entirely a joke. I think the truth of that answer is that I do want it to kind of be a visceral experience more than anything. It's a little bit like a roller coaster in a way, right? Or kind of like more akin to going to a mosh pit, to be honest with you. I went to a Nine Inch Nails concert the other month, and I ended up getting there early enough with my girlfriend that we were in the front row. and neither of us are really big moshers. You know, I'm a little old for that, but regardless of whether we were moshers or not, we sure fucking were.
At the
And
front of that piano.
and the cool thing about moshing is that, especially if you don't want to be moshing, you're gonna get mad as hell, and then you're gonna start moshing, and you're gonna start punching people, and you're gonna start shoving people around, and then it feels fantastic. And so I think that's a little bit like what I want people to feel with Anton
The
Blast.
emotional trajectory you're aiming for.
Yeah, out of the other side and be like, oh wait, I'm actually a lot better at this than I thought
The
I'd be.
release, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah. I realized that I wasn't that old because I left without aching too much.
Go.
It's all from injuries, not from your own movement. It's from
No.
the bashes, from the flying
Yes.
elbows. Yeah, it's fun. I should do
Yeah.
that. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Nick. Let's go mosh.
Hey, maybe they'll play some Quake songs, right? Nine Inch
There
Nails.
you go.
They did
Okay.
play some Quake during the pre-fold. Yeah, when before the show, they had some Quake playing over the speakers.
Nice. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They
That's
embrace that.
surprisingly cultured. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess not surprisingly. It just is culture.
yeah,
Very cool.
yeah.
Very good. I suppose if we don't have any more pressing questions regarding Antonblast, we can look towards the future.
Yes, the
Mm.
future.
You know, how much of that you're willing to, disclose?
All the updates, all the new campaigns.
Yes, of course. Well, we have the final Anton Blast update coming, and that's something that we've been working on in our spare time. It's not really been on like a timetable, because we just feel like it's more important for us to get it right. And we're also juggling other projects at the moment, internally. You know, it's not like the people working on this have gone into other things. We're just trying to work on some new things that we're not really ready to talk about yet. But we are deeply excited about them, and hopefully people will get to hear about them sooner rather than later. They're a little further along than most would anticipate. But uncharacteristically, I haven't really teased anything about them. You know, I love teasing people. I love dropping breadcrumbs, but this time I haven't really done that. So you're just going to have to wait and see when we drop them.
There you go.
Yeah.
I can hear between the lines. I know what you're saying.
Yes,
Anton
of
Blast
course.
dating sim is coming out.
Ah, man. See, if I would love to do that, but play it straight instead of it being a parody. Like I would love to
exactly.
I would love to just like actually
Like a
do it.
compelling romance. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Like Jane Austen style.
Brulo has to find love again.
Because I feel like visual novel fans are so underserved, actually, in the sense that I'm not saying this is like a visual novel player because I'm not. But think about how many IP expansions there are where they announce a visual novel and then it's like a joke, right? It's not something that's done as like an actual good game. And can you imagine being a fan of Anton Blast, but then Summit comes out and we say, so yeah, we're doing an Anton Blast dating sim, but we're actually being straight. You can fall in love with Satan if you want to, okay?
Wow.
You can fall in love with the devil himself if you want to and maintain a loving relationship with Satan.
The opportunity to clap those cheeks.
You can bring Satan to your parents.
Yeah. Wonderful.
See, I think that we would do really well with that, and I think that the fans would be super happy.
That'd be wonderful to see. I can't think of many compelling dating sims where I'm like, wow, these characters have truly fallen for, but dating sims. Yeah.
I think it's a sad thing too. Yeah, the ones that people know about are like just horror games in disguise, like Doki Doki.
Yeah. Yeah, which I mean, no disrespect to Serenity Forge and those guys. You know, it's not.
No, it's
like
not like a bad game.
But it's a bait and switch by design. You know, that's the nature of the product. I think that it would be interesting to just play it straight.
Yeah, I mean, for most cases, you have to be a super visual novel freako psycho.
Yeah,
something like Tokimeki Memorial to get that experience. So I think Toki, Anton, Blast Memorial, whatever you want to call it. Maybe look into that.
Maybe look into that.
It'll come eventually, I'm sure.
Suda 51's first game was a visual novel, and look at him.
Yep, and so my last game will be a visual novel.
Yeah, full circle.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
Any words of wisdom for prospective game devs out there listening?
That's an interesting one. I think that the one that has resonated really well with me, I got to spend some time with Jason Rubin earlier this year, and one of the things that he imparted onto me, which I will impart onto any potential game developers watching this, or even if you're not a developer, if you're just a creative and you're in the business of making commercial art, right? Because the question is always, are games art? Undoubtedly they are. Are they treated like art? Absolutely not. But irrespective of the fact that we are making art, many of us are making commercial art. We're making art for the purpose of being able to live off of it. So if you're doing that, the big question people always have is, how do I stand out? How do I make sure my game is a success? And the formula, I think, is actually pretty simple. What Jason imparted onto me was that you should be looking for a hole in the market and you should be trying to fill it. And so if you look back at the time when Crash Bandicoot was released, there wasn't really a 3D character action platformer like that, particularly not one that had looked like a Warner Brothers cartoon. And so there was also a secondary hole in that Sony didn't have a mascot character in the way that Sonic was for Sega and the way that Mario was for Nintendo. And so in the case of Antonblast, we felt that at the time of starting the game, obviously that hole ended up getting filled to a different degree by Pizza Tower, but we felt that there was a hole for Wario-style games. There really wasn't a Wario Land-style platformer. There hadn't been one by Nintendo for quite some time. So that was a pretty strong driving factor at the start of development. Again, that hole got filled midway through development owing to so many factors, by the fact that, even though we were all friends, we were playtesting each other's games, like, we took a long time to get Anton Blast out the door. It still wasn't really quite as cooked as I wanted it to be. But I still believe that the fruits of that paid off. We got in before a lot of other people did, and we are still known as, that Wario-like adjacent game. And yeah, I think that is kind of just universal knowledge. If you're trying to stand out, you don't need to be scared by the idea of, wow, there are so many games coming out all the time. It's a non-factor. Truly it is. There's always been a deluge of bad content coming out. It's a little harder now that there's so much, but truth be told, if you can figure out a way to fill a hole, if you can find a hole that has not been filled and you fill it, then you will find your audience.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good advice. And yeah, not just applicable to games, but I think about, like, from a musical perspective, I think that's very apt and true as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think music is something that ends up being, like, more subjective than games sometimes, because I think it's something that ends up being, like, more music isn't necessarily made to fill a purpose in the way that games are, but I feel it's still very applicable in the sense that there are many sounds that still haven't been created yet.
Yeah, certainly.
And so if something is speaking to you that hasn't been made yet, chances are it'll speak to someone else too.
Oh yeah, break out that theremin. Good Vibrations was like 60 years ago. Now's the time.
Now's the time. Bring it back.
It's true.
Very good. Well, Nick, do we want to? Can we present our?
Yeah, I have a special video
Evan.
I prepared from Evan,
our beloved job,
mutual friend, and our sponsor.
He's kind enough to take that mantle. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me make sure this actually works.
Oh, nice. Certainly working.
Well.
Oh, here we go. I like it already. Talk to us, baby. What's happening here? What's happening, Nick?
I really do feel like I'm on Space Ghost.
Hey, that's perfect. That's exactly what we're.
I haven't wanted to do a Space Ghost thing forever. Anyways, I can just. There we go.
Cookbook win.
Okay, did it work?
It worked.
Great, because I can't hear anything.
Oh well, yeah. Tony, cookbook win.
Cookbook now for the future.
There you go. There you have it. There you go, Evan. Well, with that, I think that's bringing us to the end of today's episode. To the plug section of the episode. So, Tony, where can viewers and listeners find this game if they want a piece of this action?
If you want to play Anton Blast, then the best way to do it is to go to antonblast.com and buy a copy from Steam. Failing that, you can go on the Nintendo eShop and buy a copy on Nintendo Switch. That copy also works on Nintendo Switch too. We're also partnering with the fine folks at Fangamer LLC to make a physical edition of the game for Nintendo Switch, and that will also work on Nintendo Switch too. That'll be available for pre-order starting later this month.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Nauseatingly corporate speak. Where can viewers and listeners find you?
Yeah, what do you say all that crazy stuff that you can't keep holed up in your skull? You got to let it all out.
Where you're reposting the Anton
Yeah.
fan art. Yeah.
Oh
not
my
the
God.
not the Summitsphere stuff, not the stuff that's been approved by S&P.
So I post on Twitter primarily, but not as much as I used to. I used to be a pretty big Twitter head.
Any reason
why?
Any reason you want to check?
Yeah. There are a couple of reasons that I can think of, but people are just too mean on there these days. You ever notice that people are just really angry? But and yeah, just maybe some interesting clientele around there these days, but forces you to reckon a little bit with whether you'd want to be on that platform. But you can find me there with the handle at GraysonZ80. And I also post on Blue Sky if you're not terribly annoyed with that platform yet. I know I am. And my handle on there, I believe, let me verify that because I actually don't even remember what my handle is.
Tony Computer Entertainment or something?
Is that it? Yeah, that's it. My handle's TonyComputerEntertainment.com. And then I think that's about it for socials. I've got an Instagram that I don't
You have
use.
a Bandcamp you want to share or anything like that?
I don't think so.
All right.
I don't think I even have a Bandcamp. Yeah, I try not to talk too much publicly. I think it's better if I shut up.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And after
love
this, he's going
enigmas.
back in the vaults.
Exactly.
If you want to send me an email, I do read all of them, and I respond to them pretty often too. Tony@Summitsphere.com is it.
That's true. He responded to us. I couldn't believe it.
Yep. It's unbelievable. How dare I?
Mm-hmm.
The gall of this man.
I can't believe it. Tony, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks.
It has been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a lot of fun.
Oh, well, glad to hear
God.
that. Well, we'll leave all your links in the description below, and we'll leave our stuff down there as always.
Fantastic. I hope I can trust you with them there. They don't get lost later.
Oh, they won't fall into the wrong hands. Trust us.
There's going to be a couple of sections. Just go all the way down. It's fine.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think that's all right. Sometimes you just have to, let your bird leave the nest.
Yeah. You're going to put some yellow paint around it, perhaps. It's a little gamer joke for those used to watching.
Whoa!
Little piece of gaming humor.
Oh, man. I love gaming and gaming humor.
Mm-hmm. And with that, everybody, thank you for listening. Have a good night. Until next time, go out there and play some video games.
Yeah, keep on gaming in the free world.
Doot 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 doot.